Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
So our photographer is here, Colorado-based photographer, Paul deBerjeois. Did I say that right?
You did.
That wasn't easy. Hi, Paul. It's good to see you.
Hi, Leo. Great to be here.
What kind of shooting do you normally do?
I specialize in hot air balloon photography.
Wow.
I'm an official photographer for the largest annual balloon event in the world, which is the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks.
I've always wanted to go to that, and boy, those are great images. I've seen your images. It's the air is clear, the colors are vivid and bright. There you go, and it's just gorgeous to see that. Do you go up in the balloon to shoot too?
I fly and I shoot from the ground. That's right.
Yeah. Wow, what fun. Well, we thought we'd, I mean, who better to try out a camera with 60x optical zoom. This is a wild camera. It's a little under $500. It's the Nikon CoolPix P600. And we thought, you know, oh, sure, we could review it, but who better than a guy who goes up in balloons to review a camera with that kind of zoom? Paul, what'd you think?
I liked it. You know, you mentioned the 60x zoom. I think that's the major feature for that camera. If you shot 35 millimeter film, the lens equivalent there is like having the range from a 24 millimeter on the wide end, which is a really nice wide start, to 1,440 millimeters on the long end.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Are the shots we're seeing now from this camera?
Yes, everything that you've shown so far is from that camera.
Including the video? Including
the video, yes. And there's a really cool feature in the video. I did one of those, and that is a high-speed capture that allows you to play it back in slow motion. And one of the videos that I did there was the balloon burner flame. They're zooming in on the summit of Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs, trying to show you the capability of the zoom, and then backing way off.
Yeah. Wow.
So absolutely, that lens is the key feature for that particular camera.
Now, what do you normally shoot?
I'm a Nikon guy. I shoot Nikon DSLRs, both full frame and crop sensor, APS-C sensors.
Okay. So, you know, the first thing I noticed is compared to a DSLR, well, first of all, of course, it's a permanent lens, but it also feels a little light and plasticky compared to a DSLR. But it does have one advantage at a lot of points. The Nikon's kind of, the CoolPix has really introduced was this articulated sensor that really allows you to shoot from up, from down. You can be surreptitious and shoot from your belly like it's an old Rolleiflex. What did you think of that?
I found that to be a really useful feature. At balloon events, you have a lot of crowds standing around the balloons as they're inflating.
Right.
And it was really great for me to be able to put the camera up over my head, twist the LCD, and be able to see exactly what I was shooting. So that was very helpful.
Now,
the other thing that...
Go ahead.
Well, also, as you said, the surreptitious part, many times if I'm trying to get crowd reaction shots, I will actually carry the camera down at my waist. And it was handy to be able to twist that LCD up and take candids from unsuspecting participants at the balloon rally with their expressions and emotions and things like that.
I found the image quality on the LCD fine for shooting. I don't know how it was in bright sunlight. I imagine a little more difficult to read.
I didn't really have a problem with it, and I did use it on that kind of camera. I won't put my eye to the viewfinder. I'll use the LCD.
And that was what I was going to bring up. It better be okay in bright sunlight, because normally you'd want to use the viewfinder. It's the smallest, worst video tap I've ever seen. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Unusable, probably. So you're going to be using the articulated LCD, and I doubt very much that you'll be using this. You look like you're watching a 1950s television set. It's terrible.
Right.
No RAW in this either. If you're a pro, you have to shoot JPEG.
Right, and that's probably my biggest disappointment with the camera, because I shoot exclusively in RAW.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one drawback. But I also checked the competitive cameras. Yeah, that's the high-speed video, slow motion of heating the inside of the balloon.
The colors seem very rich and accurate as well, especially unusually so for video.
Yes.
All right. So now I'll tell you some of the other things I didn't like about this. Maybe you didn't notice these. If I shoot in portrait, it didn't rotate them.
Right.
I had to go through them all and manually rotate them. That's just an annoyance, but it's an odd thing for a company that like Nikon that ought to know better. How big? It's a 16 megapixel?
16 megapixel. The image sensor itself is about the size of Lincoln's head on a penny.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's not a very big image sensor, and 16 megapixels is plenty to put on a sensor that size.
Yeah. And how was it in low light shooting? Did you try anything? I mean, bright sunlight, it's not hard for a camera to do a good job, but very hard for a digital camera to do a good job in low light.
Right. The lens itself is a relatively slow lens.
Yeah.
At the widest zoom length, it's an f3.5. At the telephoto end, it's f6.5. So it does want to work in brighter subjects. Those were some sunrise shots I shot in Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs. That particular shot that you're showing right now, I wanted you to be able to see the out of focus called bokeh.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be able to see, what the best you could expect. And a small image sensor camera is not known for great bokeh, but this camera did okay.
It's not bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. The depth, the shallow depth of field, the mountains out of focus, the flowers in focus. And is this macro? Does it have a macro setting?
It does, and that's what I used for those up close on the flowers.
That looks pretty darn nice. Now, I took some pictures at the football game to give you a sense, and I think Brian Burnett, our technical director, can show you. We were at the Niners game. This is the zoomed out. We're way up in the stands, the American flag, and way down there in the middle, you'll see the lead singer from Train singing the national anthem. Zoomed in a 60X, you can see the picture, the details. This is better than binoculars. I mean, I was blown away. Now, there's another one. This is that's Jerry Rice and Joe Montana on the right, Ronnie Lott on the field. And I tell you, they look like little dots from our seats in the stands. But as well as binoculars, you can zoom right in. However, I found it very hard to shoot at 60X without a tripod because you move the camera I got a lot of pictures of people's feet and the tops of their heads.
Yes. Yeah.
You gotta. So, and I've always said this: when something has that much zoom, you're going to need a tripod, or just be very careful to hold this steady as you're shooting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sent you a couple of pictures of the moon, full moon and crescent moons that I shot, and that's
Oh my goodness, Paul, that's amazing.
Thanks. That gives you. I used the moon as my test subject because not only is it far away and there's plenty of detail if you're able to pull it out, but it's also moving. So you not only have to be able to expose properly for it, but the camera has to have a good enough lens to be able to capture that image at full zoom while the subject is moving slightly. So
wow,
I thought it passed
impressive.
my test.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely passed my test for moonshot.
And I am sure that's on a tripod.
Yes.
And what were you shooting at? What frame, shutter speed and aperture on this?
I use the sharper apertures, which is in the mid range, probably around on that camera f4, f4.5.
So you get
f5.
better focus.
Right, and the shutter speed for the moon is pretty fast. It can be up around 1/200th of a second, 1/400th of a second.
Because it's bright.
Yeah, the moon is bright. Yes.
Yeah. Wow, those first two images, the black and white, did you process those a lot in Photoshop?
I processed them only very tiny bit in Nikon's Capture 2 NX.
Those are stunning.
Yeah, it's a great. One of the benefits that I see for that camera is if you want a long zoom lens for bright light work, and you don't want to pay the $4,000 or $5,000 or $8,000 that it would cost to put an 800 millimeter or a 1200 millimeter lens on your camera, this is a real good option for a low-cost, bright light situation, long zoom.
Boy, this is where I wish we had RAW.
Yes.
I mean, this is a gorgeous shot. Wow, that is just spectacular. Well, let's talk about the pros and cons. We're talking about the Nikon CoolPix P600, $429 list, so it's inexpensive, and a 60X zoom. What did you like about it, Paul?
I love the lens, the long lens.
Yeah.
Great, obviously. Also, the camera has exposure modes for all skill levels. If you're a beginner, it's got the preset scene modes where it's basically a point and shoot. White balance, shutter speeds, all those things are figured out for you. So you just set it to landscape or portrait or fireworks or whatever, and it's there. If you're more advanced and you want to take control of the exposure settings, it has the typical PASM that Nikon offers: program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and full manual. So that's, I thought, was a very strong point for the camera. Also, the articulating LCD, the electronic viewfinder, if you use that, has a diopter control, so that if you wear glasses, you can adjust it and you'll be able to see sharp without your glasses, or to adjust for your eye. And then finally, a very tiny thing, but could be important, the lens actually has filter threads. So you can put on a polarizer or a neutral density filter. Those are the things that are really hard to duplicate in Photoshop.
Yeah.
So that's handy.
And sometimes something unusual in a camera like this, a point and shoot. Boy, these images are gorgeous. How about negatives? What didn't you like about this?
Well, you've already mentioned this, that there's no RAW capture. It only saves in JPEG. And so from the standpoint, if you like to post-process, your options are very limited. The second thing is that I already mentioned the relatively slow lens, f3.5 on the wide end to f6.5 on the long end. So your subjects, especially if you're zooming into them, have to be pretty bright. A couple of small things: the battery has to be charged in the camera with the camera turned off.
Yeah, they don't give you a standalone charger.
No. You can buy them aftermarket from other than Nikon, but if you have a second battery, and you still can't pop that battery in and shoot some more.
Right.
Yeah, and then finally, if you look at the bottom of the camera, the battery door and the memory card door, if you have a tripod plate and you're mounted to a tripod mounting plate, you have to take that mounting plate off to get to the memory card.
That bugs the hell out of me, although I have to say some high-end cameras have the same problem.
Yeah.
It's a little annoying. Yeah, you have to take it off the tripod. I had one other thing, and I don't know if you noticed this problem, but sometimes the zoom was unresponsive. I was doing a lot of zooming in and out. Maybe I broke it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm spoiled because on my DSLRs, I turn the zoom, turn the lens to zoom.
Yeah.
You have to wait for the motor to move the lens in and out on that. And it was a little bit difficult with some of the faster moving subjects on the balloon field.
So at 429 with a 60x zoom, now it comes down to your try, buy, or don't buy. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to land right in the middle of the fence on this one, Leo. I think it's a try because there are so many different ways that photographers use their cameras. Again, if you're looking for an inexpensive long lens that you would use in bright light, this would be a great choice. If you're interested in growing with that same camera and getting into Photoshop and post-processing, the lack of RAW is a definite showstopper for me. But I think if you want a very light, fully capable camera to take on travel, on trips, on vacations, to shoot the family shots, it's great for video. I think it's definitely one worth considering. So I'm definitely a try, and possibly a buy if it suits what you want to do.
Well, if you're ever going to shoot the moon, this costs less than most telephoto lenses. I tell you, I was a little skeptical on this camera until I saw those shots, Paul. Boy, I tell you, it's not the camera, it's the photographer. Paul deBerjeois is at colorbandit.com, where you can see his amazing photos, hotairphotos.com as well. He's going to be at the Albuquerque Hot Air Balloon Festival in a couple of weeks. Look for him there. That should be a lot of fun. And, of course, we'll look for your images at colorbandit.com. Paul, really great to get a pro looking at this camera. I really thank you.
Oh, thank you, Leo. I appreciate it.
Take care. Paul deBerjeois, again, a try, not an unequivocal buy, but some really nice features on this, the CoolPix P600 from Nikon.